So, welcome, folks. This is season 2, episode 33. We are being joined today by a very special winemaker guest, Derek Mossman Knapp. Welcome, Derek. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, good to be here, there.
I know. Welcome. Good to see you. You look great, dude.
Cool.
Today, we're tasting the 2016 Garage Wine Co. Cabernet Sauvignon from Maipo Valley, a single vineyard. But before we dive in, Derek, I was wondering, do you think you could tell us a little bit about the project and how you got started? Is it actually made in a garage? Are you still making wine in a garage?
No, we left the garage. We had to leave the garage. We made it to 8 barrels. I don't want to say illegal. Let's say illicitly produced in the garage. I grew up in Canada, in Toronto, and I came skiing to Chile. One thing led to another. I married a Chilean winemaker and came back to live. I lived here 25 years. I think I'm more, how do you say, I should have a hump day party. I'm more Chilean now than I am Canadian, I guess. And this began in the garage because it was a hobby. It was fun. It was friends. It was doing a few things. And then when our first child came along, my wife was offered a terrific job in a perfume company that did flavorings, and they wanted a winemaker to do some things. But without belaboring the point, basically it meant for me that we could take this a little more seriously, and this would be CV. This would be, curriculum. So that Pilar could step back into a difficult job, to an interesting job in the wine business, which is not an easy thing to do for a mom on the other side of children. And one thing led to the other. She's never gone back to work anywhere. Today we're 7 employees, and we've grown. If we left the garage in 2006 because we were exporting and we had to, how do you say you launder money? So we laundered the paperwork so that we could export, because some Danes and the Brits wanted the wine so much we had to make things a little more legitimate than they really were that first year. And we have grown to almost 7,000 cases, which sounds really small, but we're actually in 14 countries.
Wow.
It's spread well, and we've done well, and it's been a terrific amount of fun. We began in the Maipo, one of the wines we're having today, and we've ended up in the south, in the old, dry farm, the historical section of Chile. Chile has 2 histories. We have a modern history that's the French varieties that are, close to the big homes and gardens near Santiago, the late 1800s, and then it has an older history that's colonial. Mm-hmm. That a lot of what we do is Carignan and those things that for another tasting another day.
Let's talk just briefly about where we're at right now. We all know we're in Chile, and we're in the Maipo Valley. And I was wondering if you could tell us about this specific site and where it's located within Maipo.
Maipo is kind of the well-known cab country for Chile, and it's a wonderful cab made there. Most of it is further down, kind of valley floor stuff. It's still third bank, but it's at I think Puente Alto is 238 meters above sea level. Where we are, it's over 9. It's about 940, I think. So what you're doing is, instead of being on the bank of the typical section of Puente Alto where the big boys are, this is in kind of up in the gorge, as it were, where there really is almost not enough space for that third bank to exist. It's a place where William Fev planted some Chardonnay up there. We're talking about 40 years ago.
Wow.
And it's kind of considered kooky, like, why would you do it up here? The plants, they might freeze, it might snow. Why would you want that? Just get out of the valley floor, it'll be easier. But we were looking, we crept up. We were in 2 or 3 places, and this is where we got to. You can go a little higher now, but no one has really interesting vineyards. And this now comes from 2 vineyards on each side of a watering canal from 2 different owners. Mm-hmm. Because it became more popular. It became more sought after, so they didn't want to sell us as much fruit, so we had to seek more in the neighborhood. Strictly speaking, our wines are single parcels, but in this case, literally, it's the parcel on one side of the, of the irrigation, and the other. You can throw a stone from one to the other. So
sure.
Small white lie, it's still a parcel. Yeah.
Makes sense.
we did what we did was develop a series of parcel wines. When you see our wines, this is San Juan de Pirque, which is like the little hamlet right there. Some very fancy weekend homes, rather expensive weekend homes that people have. But all of our vineyards are Sausal, Trujillo, Higueras. If we get to the Cabernet Franc a little later today in this Zoom, they're all kind of single. So they'd be, the smallest today is about 8 or 9 barrels, and the largest is now 21, 22. So we do a blend of those 21 barrels. And we're very, it's my Pilar, my wife and I, and Alvaro Peña, who's a PhD, a scientist. And we do tend to geek out a little bit. So what we do is we tend to make the barrels different. Like we would never have a foudre, because to put 2,000 liters or 5,000 liters of wine in one single recipient to us would just be a lost opportunity to try what would happen if that upper bit had more whole bunches, or it had the, how do you say, the stems in it, or if we did more batonnage earlier but less later. In the end, what we've been doing for years is, of those 20 barrels, there are no two the same, and they stay on their own. We rack out and back each single barrel so that just before bottling, the week before bottling, you can actually bottle up a little bit and you can start to taste what the difference makes between picking early, picking later, batonnage, no batonnage, the different barrels. Normally it's generally the same time in a barrel. It's just how many uses it's had, 3 or more generally. But it's been an ongoing experimentation. So when people say that you only have one harvest a year to fine tune a wine, for us that's not true.
Right.
3, 5, or 6 in, and each year it becomes more complex. And what we've done, I said we geeked out. We normally put QR codes on the barrels, so that the 3 of us recognize this is the Carignana from Trucchi. You can smell it, you know what it is, but you don't know which permutation it is, and you have to pronounce, saying, I like this better than that. That's interesting, but where is it going? Before you know, when you know this is the bit that had the most stems of all, it's easy to say, ooh, this might be a little much. But when it's just your palate, and you're just saying, I like this, or what you didn't like 3 months after harvest comes around after, we say wines are élevage is 2 winters. Right? So in the end, after that first winter, when malolactic finishes and different things happen, suddenly what you didn't like, you really like, and you're very thankful that you didn't do a blend and then put it in a series of barrels, but rather you kept it separate, because you can distinguish those things.
And tell me if I'm wrong. This is the Cabernet Sauvignon. However, you may or may not have included a barrel of Cabernet Franc as well.
This in a normal year has a barrel of Cabernet Franc, and that's the reason we started making a Cabernet Franc, because on one of these 2 properties we found the Franc and we liked it so much we said, but we could make more of that.
Oh, no way.
No, and literally, I remember the first year they told us, you will never sell that. There's no such thing as Cabernet Franc from Chile there, never commercially. That is the first wine to turn over vintage in the cellar every year since. 10 years consistently. It's always the first time. And that's why we've made a second one. We make one in Pirque and we make one in Las Higueras in Maule in the south. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a little less of it, but it's just one of those things that Cabernet Franc is love and hate, Cabernet Sauvignon is forever.
It's all love here. It's all love here.
But I think there are people who are very...
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But we also find people who are drinking Cabernet Sauvignon and can be introduced to Cabernet Franc, and they love it. I've always loved it though.
But to me, this is a wine that the Cabernet here is just a classic. It's got a little more black fruit. It's not jammy like a lot of, there's some wonderful jammy wines from the Maipo, but to me, this is just
fresh. I gotta say, dude, it's absolutely delicious.
It's like a well-fitted jacket. It's an English tailor, not a double-breasted, bombastic thing.
And for our readers, because I know they're always curious, could you talk a little bit about the quality of the farming?
The farming that we are most involved with is in the south. We've got the Cabernet Franc open here. Everything we do is cultivated. We're planting cover crops this year in the wintertime. And they're things that pull nitrogen out of the air and the soil, and basically we will turn it over as we plow before as summer approaches. And end of August, September. And what we've done is we've raised like a posse, like a team of people that prune with us. I mean, they are in part owners of some of the vineyards. They're the small vignerons that we do some of the Garnacha and the Carignans in the Maule and in the Tata. And we use them as a group through the year. And in the end, what you're doing is you've got probably someone's father helping to prune, because pruning is like divining for water. There's people who know how to do it and have that kind of gift. And there's other people with all the studying and schooling and PhDing, they'll never truly get it. Every plant is different, and they go through. And it's just the way. I mean, and I'm not sure who first would have said that, wine is made in the vineyard. But it's the farming, and in the end, the cooking is important. What goes on in the cellar, but I mean, there's only so much you can really do, and you can't make good wine out of bad fruit. You can make bad wine out of good fruit. But that's where we've been concentrating, working not certified organic, but organically and holistically sounds like cliche. We say originario.
Okay.
It's like a word made around origin. It's the way it's been done. It's the way it's been passed down.
As we always found. Yeah. So when you take these wines to your table, Derek, what are you usually drinking them with?
The Frank has a little more acidity to it. It's a little harder. I do beef, lamb, something like that, with a little more candied fat to it. Could be like a stronger sauce. I'm not sure it has to be a cheese sauce, but if there were some mushrooms or something gamey, something hunted, would be brilliant. And the Cabernet to me is very very kind of classic, very proper. There you want to, I'm not sure it has to be filet mignon, but something that's a little leaner, a little more proper. It's kind of the wine to have when the boss comes over for dinner, or your father-in-law, or the father-in-law to be, and you're trying to impress. Give people ideas here. I mean, I think it's a little more classic, I
agree.
Cabernet's a little more classic, and this would be a little more playful.
It's super polished. We love what you do, dude. And both wines today are just totally singing. I'm thrilled to offer them tomorrow. I just want to offer you a big thank you for joining us today, all the way from Santiago. Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Santiago today. I'll back to the farm tomorrow.
Best luck to you guys down there too. Be safe, dude. And,
okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend. Thanks for joining the show today.
Cheers. Talk soon.
Take care, pal. See ya.
Ciao.